Boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, let me get a full screen so I can see what we're doing here. Welcome to another fabulously successful webinar put on by the incredible folks at American Advertising Federation Houston with a little help from New Jersey. Uh, that's good, but originally from Houston. It's an event today, and please, we'll get into the logistics of what we're going to do today. Today's event is called Why It's Easy to Market to Your Clients But Not to Yourself. And if you're telling me that you already know how to do that, you're lying. Okay. So we want you to stay with us. And we also invite you to introduce yourself. The chat box down below will give you an opportunity to say hello and also to introduce questions later on, which we will have with Margot. We're going to tell you a whole bunch of stuff right now. I'd like to introduce our 2021 chair of the American Advertising Federation, Houston. Kate Krennick is a principal at Kate Krennick Creative. Kate Krennick Creative provides art direction, creative direction, graphic design for print, web, and television advertising, and has also done an incredible job. Wouldn't you all say? With the membership and the board and everything that's going on this year with the American Advertising Federation. But wait, there's more. Kay, good afternoon.
Thank you, Ray. I appreciate all the kind words, and hello to everybody. As I say every month, I know that you're not here to hear me talk. I know you're here to hear Margot, and she's going to do a great job because we already went through the content during a practice run, and you got a lot to look forward to. I'll run through the things I'd like to point out to you really quickly. Most of you on the email list probably got an email this morning about our District 10 Mosaic Award winners. And that is tomorrow at 5:30. It's a free virtual event. There's a Zoom link in that email. And just to give you a big picture of how good Houston is going to look on this event, so you want to log on and listen and watch. The district is made up of Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and parts of Louisiana. And they started their very first ever Mosaic Awards. We had hoped to do them in person going back as far as April. They've tried to do them in person this fall and have made the decision we had to do them virtual. They're giving away a total of 9 awards that it's in the categories of diversity and ways people have given back to the industry. And of those 9 awards, 4 of them go to local Houston AAF members. One of them is our friend Valentina, who's online with us right here. Also, Lopez Negrete Communications is going to be honored in 2 different categories, and Gilbert Communications is going to be honored for their work for I Am Life. It's going to be a big time event, and Houston is going to be in the spotlight, and our very own Ray Schillens is also going to be hosting the event. So we have a lot to look forward to. I hope you all can log on and look at what a big splash Houston is making tomorrow night at 5:30. I also just want to say really quick, thank you to everyone who donated and or shopped and or bought or bid in our online auction, Bid 2020 Goodbye auction. And it was very successful. We're very pleased with the outcome of it. We appreciate it, and we appreciate the support for our advertising initiatives and scholarships. So speaking of advertising initiatives and scholarships, we have our 25th annual student conference coming up November 5th through the 7th. Many of you were either students at student conference, have volunteered at student conference, have been on a panel at student conference. You know that it takes hundreds and hundreds of hours of volunteer time. And we'd like to thank our own Valentina Gomez Bravo and Kate Nielsen, our board members who are the co-chairs of the conference, and Tammy Guest, who did the conference for 20 plus years, who's helping lead them and teach them how to take this on. And we're all learning as we go on how to do the conference virtual, but we're very excited about it. So if you at home have a niece, a nephew, a friend who has a college student who's thinking about majoring in communications or is majoring in advertising, marketing, communications, graphic design, any of those things, they should sign up for the conference. You can do that on our website. It's $30 for a student, and it's going to be an amazing amount of content. And I'll just say thank you up front now, but we'll do a much more formal thank you to all the people who are participating in our panel discussions and reviewing portfolios and resumes, and it's going to be an amazing event. The November webinar, just save the date, November 18th at noon. We're always the third Wednesday of the month. And the topic is going to be Power Money, Blazing a Trail for Women in Sports. And our speaker will be Deanna Witter, who's the Chief Revenue Officer with the Houston Dynamo. It's going to be a very exciting and very different type of webinar for us. And it'll be more of an interview style. Deanna's she's got a lot of national recognition, and we're excited to hear what she has to say. And last thing I'll bring up is that the American Advertising Awards entries will be due starting December 1st through the 31st, I think. And now's a good time to go ahead and renew your membership if you haven't done it, and get those member rates for your entries. Everybody wants to win an Addy, right? And the Addies are, okay, it's the American Advertising Awards where you will win an Addy. And we're excited, and it's going to be a very unique and fun experience this year. But go ahead and start making your list and make sure your membership's up to date, and we're good to go. Now we can get on to the main topic. Thank y'all for your attention.
Very good. Thank you very much, Kay. And thanks to our sponsors for today's event, Bud Light Crisp, extra tasty, surprisingly light. It's only 94 calories and 2.9 carbs, which really interests me, by the way. Okay, and we thank them for sponsoring today's event. One thing that we did not touch on was, well, tomorrow Kay talked about that for the 10th District Diversity and Inclusion Awards, the Mosaic Awards. You can go there and get an invitation and join in that event. It's going to be great in the afternoon. It is very important that you're there because Houston is at that event, and that's a very, very good thing. One thing we didn't talk about was the American Advertising Federation podcast. It's called Ad Speaks Houston. It's the Addy Award-winning podcast, by the by, and we'll actually have Margot on a podcast beginning tomorrow for that as well, and she'll be on the radio program. Podcast, you find that on your favorite podcast platform. You'll also find that on iHeartMedia, KPRC 950 AM, so you can hear globally. And I know we've got folks listening from London this afternoon, this evening on this webinar. I don't know whether you guys saw that earlier, but they are listening in London today. That's the benefit of our new normal. I hate that term. Are you a member of the American Advertising Federation? There are a lot of membership benefits. And the cool part is you can join now. You don't have to wait until a certain point to join the American Advertising Federation. To go check that out. The website is aaf-houston.net, but if you just put in AAF Houston, you're going to find us as well. I had the chance to get to know Margot about a week or so ago. We had a podcast with her, which I said we'll be releasing tomorrow. So make sure you subscribe to the podcast. You'll hear that as well as today. But today, it's why it's easy to market to your clients, but not to yourself. It's a free webinar. This is a good thing. And it's underwritten by Bud Light Crisp, as we talked about. Margot Aaron is the loud red-headed host of Hillary and Margot Yell at Websites, the popular internet talk show that Loomly called one of the top 7 marketing shows of 2019 alongside HBR and Akimbo. And Aaron began her career as a psychological researcher at Emory University. That you need to remember that part, okay, because this is key. Leading her unexpectedly into the field of marketing, where she studies human behavior, purchase motivators, and customer mindsets. Today, Margot helps online business owners develop and use their voice in order to stand out online. And we're going to learn a lot today. So you can take notes if you want, but I just intently listen. Margot, welcome. It's good to have you here today.
Thank you for having me. I'm thrilled to be talking to Houstonians, though I'm a little bit jealous. Your winter is the best. It's always, we are like actually cold here, and Houston winter is like 50. But let me share my screen so we can get started here. Oh, I'm hearing an echo. There we go. Let's see. Hold on, y'all. Here is slideshow. Okay, can everyone see me and the slides? We're good. Okay. I am gonna run through this content. I'll do my best. I really love Q&A. So if you have, what's happening? I put it in slideshow, y'all. All right, here we go. I'm a millennial who can't use the internet. It's fine, it's totally fine. One moment, enter full screen. There we go. Okay, we're good again. Thumbs up, thumbs up. Excellent. So I'm Margot Aaron. As Ray said, I am the co-host of a show called Hamya. Hillary and Margot yell at websites. I run a website called That Seems Important that was named one of the top 100 websites for writers. I'm a former Inc. contributor. I've been published in all those places. And the main thing to note is I worked in the agency world and then ventured off on my own, a story I will tell you in a moment. And today I mostly teach and I coach on marketing, sales, and self-promotion, as well as imposter syndrome. And so today I wanted to tell you a bit about this headline. Let's see. So this was one of my first pieces for Inc. It was called Why You Don't Need a Website to Build a Successful Business. And it was the story of how I had built my consultancy by being essentially invisible online. I spent a few years simply writing the wave of word of mouth and customer referrals and my network. And that worked for a while until a friend of mine in London actually called me up and she said, listen, I really want to send some business your way, but it's getting to the point where it's a little unprofessional. You can't just keep relying on LinkedIn. You need like a proper brand. So I said, okay, you know, at this stage of my career, that kind of makes sense. I probably should. So I decided it's time to put out my shingle and I start building a website and I completely collapsed. I started all the basic questions I would ask my clients. I couldn't answer for myself. Who is the target market? What are my brand values? You know, the Simon Sinek start with why. That question just sent me into an existential tailspin. What is my why? I want to make a difference in the world. I care about the rainforest. Why am I thinking about the rainforest? This is my business. You know, it just derailed me completely. And I noticed this pattern in my clients as well, that there comes a point where if you are a founder, if you are a freelancer, if you are a consultant, anytime you are putting yourself out there, if you're the owner, it starts to feel personal. And we start losing that ability to be objective. And there's a few things that happen that I want to go through. We all start to experience imposter syndrome, where we feel like, oh my God, do I even know how to do this? What am I telling myself? I know that for me, I was a strategic planner in the agency world. And I started to tell myself, well, you know, there's a big gap between strategy and execution. And so maybe you don't actually even know what you're talking about. And this was after several years that I was in business, right? So those voices start to come up, the existential crisis, which we talked about, the fact that it gets deeply, deeply personal, where I don't know if you guys have the same blending, but I would start to feel like, well, that typography isn't me. You know, it would start to feel like everything was an extension of who I was and what mattered to me. And I just completely lost the capacity to be objective. Now, you've probably seen this in your clients. You have probably seen them feel like over-identify with the brand instead of being able to answer objectively whether a piece of collateral works or doesn't work to meet the objective. Then there's the expert dilemma. So part of the expert dilemma is we think that we can shortcut the process. We start to feel like, oh, no, I don't need a full like brand document and a style guide. I know who my customers are. I know the colors and I know how it's supposed to work. It's fine. And so we start to shortchange ourselves. And then we, along the way, get really confused. And so that's another thing that starts to happen. We drink a little bit of our own Kool-Aid and think that we can skip steps. It also creates this feeling like we should be further along, and this self-consciousness that like, because we're experts, it's really hard to be in a beginner's mind. One of the things I remember when I started my website, That Seems Important, which was different than my company website, by the way. I turned that one into a personal blog, and I started implementing or putting the pressure on myself to do really advanced conversion rate optimization tactics. And it was so difficult because I didn't have any traffic, right? So the expert in me was like, you should be better at this. But the truth was, it was a new website, right? The rules that applied to my clients didn't apply to me. And it was hard to reconcile that. So I call that the expert dilemma. An over concern with how you're perceived. We often get really, really self-conscious about what people in the industry are going to say, what people in organizations like this will say about your collateral, what past clients might say, past bosses, what a difficult client will say versus your ideal client. It starts, again, feeling really, really personal, and we start trying to control that narrative of wanting to look a certain way in the market. The next one is false humility. So this one's interesting. Often this is especially true if y'all are in the creative field. So if I have any designers or copywriters out there, producers, videographers, editors, we are the ones that tend to diminish our accolades and diminish our all of the things that truly are special about what we've created. So actually, we did it on the call that we had, this group had before, when we were talking about how no one might recognize the name Continental if I put that on my website, because it's United now, right? Like that's one of those ways that we keep ourselves small, when really, no, of course people are going to know Continental. You should be loud about it, and that's an incredible account to have had. And so we tend to keep ourselves tinier than we should be because we're uncomfortable. And we've believed what we were taught, which was this myth of discovery. If I was good enough, people would just find me. People would just do their own research. I shouldn't have to prove myself. And we start to get, certainly I do this, we get really self-righteous, where I'll start to be like, this is below me. At my level, I shouldn't have to do stuff like this. Right. And so I start to talk down on the tactics that I would absolutely recommend someone else do. And then lastly, we want to be further along than we are. You know, my clients, when I was running my consultancy, you know, they would hand me an email list of 30,000, 100,000 people. They would have, you know, 50,000 hits a day of traffic. And so the ads I'd be running for them, the advanced segmentation, the copy test, like all of the things that I would be doing for them was at a certain stage of business. So I was an expert at those things. But when it came to the stage of business that I was at, which is the first, you know, 5 to 10 years, it wasn't this, I didn't have the same numbers. I didn't have the same metrics. I wasn't starting at the same point. And so all that to say, you lose the ability to be objective and to trust yourself. All of these things start to come up in different ways, and some are worse than others for us, depending on where we all are on our personal development journey. I know imposter syndrome is probably my worst one, but so that leads us to the next piece, which is this. Oh no, my computer doesn't want to work. There we go. The marketing meta problem. So what's unique about marketing versus any other type of business is that this is effectively a case of the shoemaker has no shoes. And I've heard a really, really beautiful quote, and I'm going to mess up attribution because I don't remember who said it, but they said, you know, it's not that the shoemaker has no shoes, the shoemaker wears Louboutins. And I loved that, but I haven't found that to be the case. I have found to be the case that anytime you are deploying a skill personally that you do professionally well, it's a different skill. It's a completely different skill. The ability to do accounting for your client is different than you doing your personal accounting. That's why people who do personal finance often have different personal finance rules for themselves than for their clients. It's really difficult to be objective. It's a different stage in your business, and it feels deeply personal. And the skill is actually showing up and being messy. So here's the thing. When I say that marketing for your clients is a different skill, it's the skill of client management. It's the skill of cleaning up the mess so they don't have to see it, organizing content, organizing existing assets. We are able to see the forest for the trees for our clients. When it comes to us, we essentially need someone like us to do this for us. It's really, really hard to do it for yourself because we aren't objective, because it is personal. And the skill is truly to be able to show up and test and iterate and to make mistakes, all the things we actually protect our clients from seeing. Our clients aren't involved necessarily in the creative process. They're not doing the brainstorms with us. They aren't looking at the different ways in which we go from A to F. They just get presented with F. And so when we are exposed to that messy problem, it's a different set of skills that needs to come up. And there's a good example actually from my life right now. One of my friends is in the middle of a launch and someone asked her, well, who's your target market? Which was a basic question, right? We all know this for our clients, but when it came to herself, she again spun into an existential crisis and did what we all do, which is it's everyone. It's everyone is my target market. It's for everyone. We all want to do this. And she started doing what our clients do, which was spiraling and feeling a bit like, oh my God, do I not know how to do this? Do I not know? How do I explain who my client is in one sentence? Why don't I know the basic things? And it's because at that stage that she was at, it's really about testing and iterating and finding out the answers to things that our clients hand us from day one, or we clean up for them. So it's two different skills. The skill for marketing for yourself is a skill of confidence, personal development, endurance, lasting power, and the ability to not be dissuaded and defeated by self-doubt, because that's really at the root of a lot of the marketing problems when it comes to marketing for ourselves. Because the truth is, you actually know how to market for yourself. I don't need to come in here and tell you tactically how to do it. You know, and I know this because when I started my blog, I started to get tons of emails from founders who would come to me and say, I really feel like I have a marketing problem when it comes to growing my audience. And I would start peeling back the layers because they were all marketers. It tends to be marketers who follow me. And when I would peel back the layers, they knew how to grow an audience. They knew how to get more followers. They knew how to grow the bottom line. It was simply that it's so hard when it's you at the helm. We want a plug and play way to do this, and there isn't one. That is what we offer our clients. We offer our clients frameworks. And when we are applying that skill to ourselves, we can see the messiness. And it's extremely, extremely derailing. And so again, marketing for yourself is a different skill than marketing for your clients. So what do we do about it? How do we overcome it? I have a few recommendations. And as you have questions, by the way, I cannot see the chat. So if things are coming in, y'all let me know, but we'll keep moving forward. So number one, customers, not colleagues, is number one. So when it comes to marketing for yourself, I want you to have tunnel vision on that question of who is it for? It is for your customer. It is for your clients. It is for the person paying your bills. Often what derails us is we get these voices in our heads. It's either an old boss, it's a colleague, it's something you heard at a networking event, it is an old professor, it is your mom. Like all of the voices of people criticizing you come up when you start to market yourself. And then we get really concerned about how we're going to be perceived. So think about this when you sit down to share something you're doing on LinkedIn, right? You are thinking about all the people who know you personally and what they might think of you. You're not focused on your customer exclusively. So having that tunnel vision about whether that end user really, really cares, is this something that's going to be useful to them? This is what streamlines your strategy. So when you feel overwhelmed in marketing for yourself, focusing on your customers gets you really, really clear on what they might care about. And it gets you really, really clear on your business model. So an example here is I was working with a client who was feeling like she needed to be on Facebook and she needed to grow her email list. And I asked her, I said, well, what is your business? She said, I run a consultancy. I work mostly with, she works with agencies, but specifically people within agencies. And I said, great. So they hire you as a contractor. She said, yes. And I said, how many of those people have been on your email list? And how many of those people exist on Facebook? Where have you gotten clients before? And she said, well, it's all word of mouth. I said, exactly. So why are you building a list, right? So the list for her was an ego thing because she felt like she was supposed to. She wanted people to see that and be thought of as a thought leader. And we started to come up with a plan. Like it would be better for her to publish white papers that were distributed around executive teams. It would be better for her to launch a speaking career and attend conferences, right? That was a better marketing strategy than doing digital outreach to people who were 50, 60, 70 plus that were doing the hiring and very, very old school, like calling on the phone. A lot of them didn't read email lists. Now, it matters who your market is, right? I would recommend the opposite approach to people who are telling me they sell digital products, they want to teach stuff, they have ebooks. The point is, focusing on that customer and not what the agency people will think, not what your friends would think, not what your colleagues are judging you, really, really helps streamline what it is you need to do marketing wise. Cool. So hard not to see y'all's faces. Depersonalization. This one is really hard. So have y'all ever had a client? I used to hire designers who they would present, say, like a new brand treatment. And we would have to go through this training because they'd all ask the same question. They'd get on to the client presentation and they'd show the different brand treatments and they'd go, okay, what did you think? Do you like it? And that's always my red flag, because everyone's an expert in their own opinion and everyone's going to tell you what they liked and didn't like. And it's never going to be useful feedback because it always ends up feeling so deeply personal. So we're clear here. The difference between praise, criticism, and feedback is that praise and criticism are personal. I love getting praise from my readers. If you're on my email list, please keep sending it to me. But it's one of those things that we tend to take it personally, and it usually tells you more about the person who is giving that feedback, that praise or that criticism, than it does your actual work. So in the instance of a logo, it would be better to ask the client, does this brand treatment meet the objectives, or does it communicate the values that we agreed upon? Does it express them adequately? That's the way you frame the question. And then you get feedback, right? You don't get, I like it, I don't like it. You get, I personally like this one, but it's more modern and we wanted something more traditional, right? That's useful feedback. You can work with that. So when it comes to promoting your own work and promoting your own business, taking that same posture is really useful. The praise and the criticism is usually about other people. It's them reflecting their stuff on you. Your job is to show up and do the work and to commit to the process. My dad had a great saying. He used to say, take the yeses personally and the nos professionally. And I think that really works here, because when you over-identify, and we all do this with our brand, and people say this, like, my brand is my baby, my business is my baby. Like, if it's your baby, it's personal. like that is no way to be objective. Who's objective about their baby? And so part of what we want to do is separate you from the brand. So when someone offers criticism, it doesn't send you into a spiral where you're then being reactive with the marketing strategies that you choose to promote yourself with. To stay in that space where you go, okay, did this work or did it not work? Did it meet the objective? Did it not meet the objective? Not how did it personally reflect on me and how do I feel? Cool. Another point on this, though, is I like to have separation in of church and state, especially with my creative folks. I think there gets a confusing line between what is your art and what is your business. And it's really helpful to have that line for yourself. Of knowing, this is business and I can depersonalize it, and this is my art, this is mine. Like, it is personal, and that's okay, but it needs to live somewhere separate so we don't conflate the two and then get completely derailed when we try and move forward with our marketing strategies. Okay, forget best practices. This is probably my most controversial point. I will die on this hill, y'all. So the best practices, tend to be more trendy. As much as they're supposed to be things that withstand the test of time, best practices tend to be, this is how we've always done it. This is how we've always done it. And I think that if we are going to be successful at marketing ourselves, we cannot think about this is how we've always done it. We have to think about first principles. So what are the things we know about marketing that are timeless and like inalienable, and tend to probably defy people's expectations? So the example, I've put here some graphics I will explain. David Ogilvy, who is the character Don Draper is based on in Mad Men. I'm sure y'all are super familiar with him. He wrote Confessions of an Advertising Man, and Ogilvy on Advertising, which Ray and I talk about in the podcast. But he has an entire chapter in his book about how to get clients. And he this was in the 60s, said, I will not do an RFP. I will not. I don't understand the point of doing work for free and competing with other people. That makes absolutely no sense. If you want to see whether my work is good, you can pay me. And now that's arrogant, right? Like there's a point where we have to be careful with what we challenge, but he went a step ahead and he goes, there's a better way to get clients. One, he did work that spoke for itself where clients started telling people about it. Two, he took out a series of ads over 10 years that looked like this. These are actual ads. He took out full page ads that were direct response copywritten, that were directed specifically at customers and not clients, and positioned him as the industry leader, and taught something, right? And this was how he secured clients. Look at this, how to create advertising that sells. He's just literally giving you the answer. He also has a philosophy that you should sign all of your ads. So he's doing that there. He's not hiding behind collateral. He's saying, "This, I'm good at what I do. Watch." Could you, and then he turns it around. I love this one. Account managers. Could you make the grade at Ogilvy and Mather? He makes them compete for him. Like it just took the norm of best practices and flipped it on its head. Right? I don't actually know if Ogilvy and Mather still says no to RFPs. I doubt it today. But the point is not to say no to RFPs. The point here is to ask yourself, what things can you challenge? What norms can you challenge? Because part of what people hire you to do as a marketer is to innovate and to understand the market in a way that is reliant on those timeless principles that will get the results that they want and not just copying what everyone before you has done. And often it is in that copying that we do get stuck. We feel like we're supposed to do it a certain way. I know for myself, I felt really strongly that I needed a lead magnet on my website. So because that's a best practice, you have to have a lead magnet on your website if you want to grow your audience. And some people call it a tripwire. You know, that's the not malicious way to say it. But effectively a freebie to give people in exchange for their email address. And for years, I slaved over it before I said, you know what? I think my best customers just want to read my work. So I'm going to give them this offer. Get on my list, hear what I have to say. I'm going to share my work with you. It isn't the best copywritten thing in the world, but it worked and it grew my list. So trusting that you know your audience and that the first principles still work. Like I was still following the rules of good copy. I was still following the rules of asking those questions. What do my people want? How do they like to receive information? What do they read? What kind of copy works for them? All of the reverse engineering of those first principles were still there. So I want you to forget best practices, still retain those first principles and push yourself to do in your gut where you were, have fun, like have a little bit more fun. I think that's the point of this one, is that we often feel like this is still part of the expertise dilemma, where we feel like because we're an expert or we've reached a certain point in our career, we have to do certain things. And I would challenge you to question that. There's some things we do have to do and you just have to bite it and take it. And there's other things that you can go, you know what? We're not going to do it this way. And that's what makes my brand different. That's what makes my approach to business different. And this is just how we do things. And leaning into that discomfort. And sometimes that'll be your brand differentiator. And sometimes it won't work at all. It'll be a spectacular failure and you'll be fine. So developing that muscle of being okay with failing and testing and trying something is part of the first principles and is part of the skill of marketing yourself. That is not part of the skill of marketing for your clients, right? Cool. All right, we got one more. The expertise fallacy. Okay, so we've talked about this one a bit at length, which is simply we tend to put our heads in a pretzel when it comes to feeling like we were at a certain point. It creates a feeling of moral self-righteousness. It causes us to be falsely humble or overly arrogant, and it gets us really, really tripped up in what we should do instead of what we want to do. And what I want to remind everyone, if you take nothing else away from this, it is your business. It is your agency. It is your brand. You can do something just because you want to. You can do something that isn't necessarily the way it's always been done or the way it's supposed to be done because it's your brand. Like this is where part of what attracted us to advertising and marketing in the first place is that it's creative and that it's fun. And often the moniker of being treated as an expert suffocates us and makes us feel beholden to a certain way of presenting ourselves. The main way I hear this come up from clients is people will say, well, we're in a B2B company. We really have to be professional, right? And it completely forgets that within companies that are B2B, human beings work there. Human beings with lives and a boss that might stress them out, and maybe kids that are really annoying, and a spouse that they're fighting with, and a football game they're looking forward to attending. I mean, there's still people that live behind there. So remembering that we are talking to human beings, and it doesn't mean you should deny your instincts. I know one of the things that held me back the most in my brand was feeling like there was a huge gap between the work I was doing for my clients and the high price tag on that work versus what they might see on my website. And it looking, especially if they were paying me for copywriting or strategy, I didn't want them to come to my website and be like, what is this headline? Like how, oh, like she must be an amateur. She doesn't know what she's doing, right? That really held me back for a long time until I could correctly define what is it for? What is it for, and who is going to think that way? And that's going to be our next slide, which we're going to talk about. But I want to use an example from a friend of mine who she has a brand that is public facing, really fun, and like kind of, it sells educational resources on body language. And she had a video that went viral called like the science of twerking or something. And I was talking to her about this. I said, how can you have something like the science of twerking up when you are working with these really conservative brands and being hired as a consultant behind the scenes? And she said, it's social proof. They don't hire me to learn about twerking, but they saw that it got 10,000 shares. And so I use that. So the video is not for them. It's for my audience who buys my courses. But for them, they see that I know what I'm doing. They see that I'm an expert. And so she had a really, really clear line on what it was for. And that's what I want to encourage y'all to do as well, which is, what is marketing for? Right? What is it? Like, why are we really doing it? I think it will help us to be honest about the answer, that I think a lot of us are doing it because of our ego, or because we feel like we're supposed to, which bends our brain, or because we feel like people, our clients are going to judge us, when really, defining those key metrics of, is it for brand affinity? Is it for growing our bottom line? Is it for presenting ourselves as a leader in the space? Like it's more than just our objectives, right? It's one, we should define those because we've defined them for our audience. I mean, our clients, we need to define them for ourselves. But knowing what it's for, like what is the role of marketing in your organization, really helps us separate, again, what's for you personally and what's for your clients and what's for your business. And it helps us reverse engineer what we need to do to actually market well, to actually move our businesses forward in a way that doesn't feel so personal, that doesn't get us caught up in imposter syndrome. It brings us back to the goal. It's for getting more clients, right? If it's as simple as that, or it's for, so I can retire soon, but I want people to see I know what I'm doing, right? Whatever it is that your goal is, and be honest with yourself about the goal. It's totally fine. It's totally fine if it's your ego. Half of my things are for my ego, make me feel good. So, but at least let's be honest that that's what we're doing them for. And then we can meet those goals and we can grow when we're not in perpetual tension and fighting about what it is we think we should do versus what we are doing, because that disconnect is what's causing us pain. Anyway, I will pause here and say thank you so much. And I would love to take your questions and hear about where y'all are getting stuck and how I can help.
Margot, thank you very much. Thank you.
Absolutely.
I guess we'll get some questions here. There we go. We're coming back. All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. I'm going to do some shameless plugs for That Seems Important, because I think it's important that we do so, Margot. And we'll start off questioning there. But you really need to look at the That Seems Important website, named one of the top 100 best websites for writers. And on that website, you're going to find things like be good at sales without compromising your ethics, or learn to write copy that attracts the right customers. Find your voice. That's a coaching thing. And you're going to find that on Margot's website. Valentina, I'm going to turn this back to you so you can go ahead and grab some questions, please.
Awesome. Well, we do have some questions for you, Margot. First one would be focusing on billable time versus non-billable time. When we're working on our marketing, that is non-billable time. So that's a thought process that some people are trying to overcome. What would you recommend?
Yeah. It's really, it's a good question. And I think that goes into how we think about marketing and branding. So most people, when they're marketing, spend way too much time on branding. Branding is important, but I'd like to expand our definition. Do you know the saying 50% of my advertising is working? Trouble is I don't know which 50%. So when we think about billable time versus not, I would argue that your marketing should be billable time. That if it is not hitting those goals for you by expanding your client base in your business, then you're focusing on those 50% of things that aren't growing your business and focusing on the parts of branding that might be like, there are long tail things that are going to be harder for us to quantify. Like even doing things like this, right? How will I quantify this? By how many of you join my email list? By how many, do I get a bump in sales? Like what is the metric I'm looking for and why am I doing it? And so for you, I would encourage you to ask that question. Like it's possible that doing things that aren't hitting the bottom line with your clients in that way do serve your long-term goals. And if they don't do them. I give you permission to opt out. Let me know if that answers your question. If you have follow-up ones, put them in the chat, please.
Okay.
We have another question. Tina is asking, what are some challenges that people have to keep in mind during this COVID times? Like, for example, Ray says he doesn't like the phrase new normal. So marketing-wise, what else should we be looking out for?
So this is where I rest on first principles. I think there are going to be a lot of people with a lot of conjecture. And at the end of the day, we cannot predict the future. But this is where I would encourage you to keep your eyes and ears open, focus on the bottom line, watch what people are doing. Where are people spending their time and attention? What kind of norms are changing? What of those norms affect your company? It could be, I have a lot of friends who run agencies who are having their best year in business because they already had a digital infrastructure in place. They had a digital team, and it was highly controversial for a lot of their clients who wanted to meet in person. And now they're like, haha, perfect. And so they are winning in that respect. So these changes don't necessarily have to be bad. And again, like you said, the new normal. I mean, I hope some of these things become normal. I hope we don't continue to be driven by sunk costs where we're wasting people's time with meetings that don't work, that we did because we spent most of the time in client management. I'm not sure if I'm getting at the root of her question, but I would say thinking about the cultural norms that your team is encouraging in your company and what kind of company you want to run will affect what kind of marketing you produce. But I don't see any fundamental changes in marketing according to first principles. You still want to find the right people and speak to them in the right way. You still, maybe you're reaching them more digitally, so it might require understanding more of a native tongue when it comes to email or Instagram or using Loom instead of having a phone call, and different types of boundaries when it comes to interruption. So I think there's a lot of those kinds of changes, but like marketing has always, it has always been defined by itself, like as a discipline and the art and science of getting people to care, more so than the specific tools that defined it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
We have a couple more. They're asking, do you wish you would have had your website for your business sooner? And has it helped you grow your business exponentially?
Oh, that's a great question. I do wish I had had a brochure site. I think that having had, like, at the time, my company was Argotics LLC, and having a site that had client testimonials, pricing, or services that wasn't a responsive audience building site would have been nice. Do I think it would have affected the bottom line differently? No, because I was focused on, I'll tell you why. My goals are different now. My goals now, I sell digital products and I teach. I don't consult anymore. So I'm not working with those big ticket clients where I was needing to fly a lot in person and go to pitch meetings and do a lot of work before I secured the client and doing a lot of bespoke contracts for marketing. Now I sort of have a widget and I get to sell the widget. It's a very different business model. And so for me, trying to build a website, which I did try, was a distraction from the things that were actually building my bottom line. And it really, we don't talk about this a lot, but I'm going to go ahead and say it. It reflected poorly on me to have low social media numbers and low numbers across the board, because I literally couldn't do my own marketing. Like, I didn't have time, and I was managing a staff who was focused on executing client work. And so focusing on me was actually a disservice to my clients. That's how I saw it. I couldn't figure out a way to do both, and I have not seen anyone successfully do both without a full staff that was devoted to also doing it. And so I think, again, it goes back to, what are your goals? My goals now are really different. My goals now, I mean, if you guys watch Hillary and Margot yell at websites, if there are, like, half of my clients probably wouldn't hire me back because we curse so much. And that tends to, be offensive to some people's sensibilities. Now I have a really strong brand. And so it's good. There's a bifurcating effect to that is positive for me, because the people who are turned off don't sign up for my email list, and I don't want them on. The people who think it's funny and get the joke, they're my clients, they're my customers, they're my readers. They engage with me, and they're part of my audience, and it's part of what I'm building. And so I do think a brochure, there's an argument to be made that a brochure site would have been helpful. But I got what I needed at the time from having the credibility indicators from LinkedIn and from being published in other places. So I was published, like, in HubSpot, and I think on Nutshell and some B2B, like, SaaS companies. So, like, you could find me online. I wasn't invisible totally online. I just didn't own the assets. Cool.
Oscar is asking, which one book would you recommend to start on copywriting, and what first action do you recommend to learn?
Ooh, that's a good question. First book, that's hard. If we're talking, you're just starting, I recommend actually the blogs. I think Copy Hackers has great information, and Noah Kagan from SumoMe has really great stuff online that you can really get for free, and it's much more modern. When it comes to learning from a book, I think Ramit Sethi also has really good stuff on copy. The books, though, the best book on copywriting, hands down, is Breakthrough Advertising by Eugene Schwartz. It is heavy, though. So it's like, if you're serious, it's really, really heavy. It goes deep, and it is published in, like, 1920. So the writing is a little cumbersome. But I have found that nearly everything in that book remains true today, and it will blow your mind if you're serious about learning it. If you're dabbling, I would start with something a little lighter, but that'll turn you into a copywriter.
There you go.
We have a couple more questions. Tracy's asking, for any collateral, any media type that showcases our client deliverables or case studies, what's your advice on using the client name and logo or not using it?
Your clients, not your logo, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Why would you not use it? I guess if you're there, put it in the chat. I'm curious. Yeah, because, like, if the collateral is obvious, like it says Budweiser, or it shows a can of beer, I know that the logo thing is a big debate because the client always wants their logo bigger and centered. I think as long as it's clear that you know which client it's for, then you're fine. I always err on the side of having the logo on there somewhere, but the logo is less important than it being clear who the brand is and what they're selling.
Okay, our last question is from Alyssa. It's a little long, so bear with me.
Yeah.
When you start out your business, it seems like you have to be an expert in marketing, social media, accounting, all the hats, besides your actual field of expertise, which is extremely overwhelming. What would be the best way to overcome this? Also, what would be the effective way to gain trust from clients when you're just starting out and you don't have much of a following or a client list?
Oof, okay, we got two big questions. Thank you, Alyssa. I love long questions, so you're in good company here. So when you start and you have to be an expert in all the things, I always tell people to pick two. Because when you try and do everything, you do everything bad. And when you're the CEO, when you're the owner, we do have, like, I'm also the janitor of my company, right? Like, I am also the head of operations. Like, we're doing a million things. So what we don't want is for you to do a million things poorly. So again, this is where I suggest first focus on the things that really move the needle. Know what your services are. Understand what products you sell. Make sure you're a good executioner when it comes to delivering on your promises. Like, what are the essentials? Like, focus on those essentials first. You don't have to be an expert in accounting yet. That will come. And if you met, like, the truth is, let's start here. Most of the things you'll mess up on are totally figure outable. Like, I think everyone here is probably smiling secretly. Like, we've all messed up on accounting and we've recovered. Like, no mistakes feel as terrible as the anticipation of making those mistakes, to the point where we're paralyzed. And so I think let's take the stakes down a notch. I'm saying this to myself, not just to you, but and then when you think about what that means for marketing, like needing to be a social media expert, needing to be a print expert, needing to be a copywriter, needing to be a designer. Let's start with this. It's just marketing. Like, it is not nearly as heavy as it feels. And I say this as someone who loves marketing, but it's more important that you get clients than you get your marketing together. Like, there is a priority list here. A lot of this stuff you develop as you go. And then, and so that's one. And then the next thing is really pick a couple. Like, if you feel like you're boiling the ocean, then you probably are. Like, pick a few places. Again, focus on those customers, not your clients. So are your customers on social media? Do they even read it? Do they go there? What ways in which are customers, the type of people you want to attract, the decision maker who would be paying your bills and approving your contract? You know, what kind of person are they? Where are they? I like to reverse engineer everything from the perspective of, what is that person doing? How do I intersect with that person? So, like, when I was running a consultancy, like I said, it tended to be 50, 60, 70-year-old men who weren't on social media really, who pretended to read white papers but didn't really. But like, it was important I showed up in a certain way for this particular demographic. Now it's very different. My audience tends to be long form, heavy, voracious readers. They're the people who will listen to a 2-hour podcast. They're the people who buy tons of online courses. It's a very different market. They tend to skew 40-something women that have children. Or married or divorced, but there's a family unit there. They tend to be a little older, and actually not older, the same as me. And but like, my point is, the demographic is different, and where I meet them is different. So when I was running my consultancy, I didn't do any podcasts. Now I'm on podcasts all the time, because that's where I'll find them. So so reverse engineering from where they will be is a good one. And then also, what are your natural strengths? You know, as much as design really matters to my tribe, I am not a good natural designer. Like, I am a words person. And so I doubled down on that. I was like, okay, what are the ways that I can use text to attract more people? Because I know that in the end of the day, I'm going to destroy any design I try, and I'd rather make more money so I could hire people smarter than me. And so that is the approach I've taken to those types of things. And only recently have I started expanding beyond that. So that's your question about wearing all the hats. Your second question was about attracting clients when you're just starting out. That's correct, Valentina? Okay. I think in order to answer that question, I would want to know a little bit more about your business, and if you are looking for work as a freelancer, as an agency, or as a consultant. But the answer is almost the same as my previous answer for this as well, which is reverse engineer from the type of people you want to attract and the type of work you want to do. Really examine, like, who is that person? What is the hiring process like? How do you intersect with their day? I know that for when I was trying to get bigger accounts, the way to intersect with those people was being involved in the industry. So I'd show up at a lot of conferences, I would do stuff like this, right? And being able to, they cared a lot about my portfolio, whereas I don't think anyone's asked me who I've marketed in the last like 5 years, which they should be asking, but no one cares anymore. But they cared a lot then. They wanted to see the brands. And so I wanted to make sure that I had those brands front and center so they could see. I knew credibility and trust meant a lot. I knew that introductions meant a lot. So, so I focused, again, reverse engineering on those things will help you build that list and not get distracted. This is what I meant by best practices. Don't get distracted because one person you think is more successful than you told you they did it a different way or gave you some like layman's advice. That is not the way to listen. Listen to yourself, listen to the market more than anything else. The market won't lie to you. If you try and sell something and it doesn't work, then try a different way. It's not you.
Very good.
Well, thank you so much, Margot, for answering. And thank you for those really good questions, everybody. They were amazing. I think we're almost ready to go. I will leave it to you, Ray.
Yeah, please don't go anywhere. You know, the funny thing is, why do we make advertising so hard when it's really not hard at all? And I think I sometimes answer that question is because we want our clients to think we're very intelligent. So we need to make it look hard, but it's not hard and it's a lot of fun. And it's why we do what we do. Margot Aaron from Houston, Texas to Jersey City, New Jersey. There you go. And we thank you, Margot, for that today. That seems important is the website. You can find out so much more about Margot. Do not go anywhere. I want to see 65 and 39 stay right where it's at because I've got things to tell you before we go today. The American Advertising Federation 10th District Diversity and Inclusion Award. You are looking at that happening tomorrow between 5:30 and 7 Central Daylight Time. The reason I say that Central Daylight Time is because I said before we've got folks listening in London this evening. So it's going to be tomorrow. You go to the website, you go to the District 10 website, and you register and you get the invite to come to the Zoom. Why is that important? Because we have 4 people from Houston who are part of that. For instance, Valentina is a Mosaic champion. Lopez Negrete Communications, a Mosaic champion. Also, Alex Lopez Negrete, who will be hosting the event, is being awarded there. And of course, Audrey Gilbreth with Gilbreth Communications, the I Am Life campaign, is also Mosaic Talent in Advertising. That's tomorrow. It is free. There is really no excuse for you not to be there. And we invite you to do that. Before we go, a reminder about the conference coming up on the 5th through the 7th, the AAF Houston Student Conference. You can find out more about that at the website, aaf-houston.net. The Advertising Awards, American Advertising Awards, coming up next year, of course, but your entries are now needed. December the 1st through the 31st, you'll be getting those awards, getting those entries into American Advertising Federation. Please take the time to do that. That is an important element. Our next webinar is coming up in November. It's November the 18th, Power Moves, Blazing a Trail for Women in Sports with the Houston Dynamo. If you're not a member, come join the American Advertising Federation. If you are a member, we are always looking for people to participate in so very many committees, and we have so many people who've stepped up to the plate, including the folks who are the board members, to make events happen. We cannot exist and be successful without your participation. The e-newsletter is one final thing that we want you to be part of as well, and that you can find out on the website, aaf-houston.net. We thank you again, Margot, for today's event, which is being underwritten by Bud Light Crisp, extra tasty, surprisingly light. And we invite you to come back next month for another phenomenal webinar. Let us know how we do, okay? Also want to remind you, a replay of this, it's being recorded, will be available. Keep an eye in your email box, and that's about it. I hope you guys have a safe, wonderful,
Margo, thank
blessed
you.
day.
Thank y'all for having
Good
me.
job. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Great comments in the chat. Everybody loved it. So
Good. Thanks,
Bye,
guys.
everybody. Have a
Bye.
great rest of your week.
Bye-bye.
bye.